Now, when you look at, I'll first look at the outsiders, and then I'll tell you about the insiders. And I have problems with both, so I'll critique both. But first, the outsiders. If you look at a point of view that Europeans had about India and Indian civilization, you cannot lump all of them as one group. The German Indologists were developing ideas of India which would fit into a sense of German nationalism, German superiority. They were really trying to understand the past of Germans by looking at Sanskrit texts and calling it like their past. The British had a different reason. The British were studying us because they were running the empire, and they wanted to understand who are these people, how do we rule them better, how do we negotiate, who hates whom, who can be made to fight whom, who I can buy out. So they had a certain management control kind of an agenda. French had a different reason. The French Indologists, you know, they were interested in their past as a Renaissance. They were interested in the relationship between Sanskrit and Latin because that was their past. And believe it or not, they were Russian Indologists in the 1800s, important Russian Indologists, Italian Indologists. Now, they brought different nuances because they all brought their own background into this. And they were Americans, you know, people like Emerson and Thoreau, and then the whole American Orientalist societies which started in Harvard. They called it Orientalism in those days, and after World War II, it's called South Asian Studies, which is sort of the reincarnation of Indology, if you will. The British Empire transformed into the American Empire, so it migrated across the Atlantic, and a new term was created. In the 50s, there were some meetings with CIA, Ford Foundation, State Department, saying that now that the World War is over and the British Empire is has collapsed, so how do we project the Western civilization superiority? All this is well documented, and so area studies were started to look at other areas of the world, the third world. So there's South Asia, there was East Asia, there was all these kind of areas started to study them. Ford Foundation came into this business in a big way, and the concept of a South Asia was created. Previously it used to be called Indian subcontinent. The concept of South Asia was created by the Americans actually. And so there's a whole history of all these things, and the domination of what is now called South Asian studies or Indology in the US, or what I call American Orientalism, all these origins have been from the point of view of the West. It is not that people in India started these studies. People in India are sort of outsourcing their services. They are available, sometimes doing coolie work, very menial work, of providing them what this shlok means and what's the translation of that, and go get me a scan of this particular manuscript, doing the kind of basic dirty work of many of them. But putting it together into a thesis, into a theory, into coming up with an overall paradigm of the world and how you fit in and who you are, is controlled from the United States, largely, like previously it used to be from Europe. So this is a serious issue, and I don't want you to think of me as, you know, right wing, left wing. I fly on both wings. I'm happy. I don't want to mutilate one wing or the other. I just want to wake up the Indians that this is an area where we are not paying enough attention. We're too busy becoming individually successful, and we are not paying enough attention. Now, I will tell you that China studies is controlled by China. Japan studies controlled by Japan. Russia studies by Russia. Arab studies by the Arabs. Yeah? Islamic studies, a huge amount of Islamic institutions and their funding controls the insider view. Now, there is the outsider view. You will certainly get the Donald Trump view of Islam. But there will be, for every one voice that comes out, tens of voices on the other side who are well in control, at least in terms of spreading their knowledge about themselves to their own people. So you see, the difference is that it's not because we have outsiders saying all these things. Everybody is saying everything about other people. But in our case, that we do not have enough high quality, high volume, high output, in control insiders, because the journals are controlled from the outside. The prestigious journals of India, Indology, are not in India. The editors are all based here, most of them. The prestigious conferences are in the West. You ask, you go to the most, I went in my recent tour, I went to so many Sanskrit universities, Sanskrit departments. Before that I've been to, in previous courses, travels, I've been to BHU, all kind of traditional places. And off the record, sometimes even on the record, the traditional Sanskrit scholars will tell me that they rather get their doctorate from the United States, either Harvard or Chicago or somewhere in Columbia, or if in Europe, Heidelberg or Oxford or something like that. They'd rather be given their paper accepted in a Western conference. It'll make their career back in India. That's the sort of thing. But in China, it's the other way around. The Chinese journals are controlled by Chinese. They're written in Mandarin. All Sanskrit studies journals are written in English. It's the only major world civilization which is studied from, like I'm speaking, because that's the forum. To reach out, we have accepted the authority and the domination so much that now we have to fight back on other people's language, turf. I have to come to their turf, in their idiom, in their methods. I have to understand them, argue back, bring it back to our people. But in the case of China, it's the other way around. Americans who want to become experts on China, they have to go and request permission. They'll be given permission to study, but the Chinese will keep control of the final draft. They will, if you are not writing in line, they'll throw you out, don't give you a visa next time. I don't believe in that. I'm not saying, I'm not preaching, don't blame me that I'm trying to make us closed, I'm not saying we should have censorship like they have. But I'm just trying to give you what a proud civilization says. They're saying that if you don't get it right, and if you are making fun of us and you are dead wrong and you are mischievous, then we don't believe it, we don't accept you. And when the Chinese disown an American scholar of China, it's very difficult for him to make his career. They complain, there are articles in mainstream American press, in New York Times and various places, there have been articles, and they study how do we crack this nut of Chinese, they are too tough. Same true of most places. You won't get in if you are blatantly against them. But in India, they'll give you awards. Chadam Pollock got a Padam Shri, and many others did, and got millions of dollars grant to do all this work, become big celebrities. We are colonized in the sense the Chinese are not. So we can think of becoming a superpower because our GDP will be 1% higher than theirs, or we'll have more population than them. We can talk about all of that. But the point is, mentally, we are not together with a kind of an Indian grand narrative that we all subscribe to. We all fight with each other on what exactly it means. But Chinese have a sense of the grandness of their narrative from the past, Confucian thought and Taoism and whatnot. And they're not scared to say, this is who we are, and you don't find us good, well, fine, tough luck, your problem. So we are going to advance in our terms. We don't have to succumb and bow to the West. That's how they are doing it.